everybody. My name is Josh Azevedo, and I operate a program in Tempe, Arizona called the Pathway Program. And I'm going to start the same way that Dr. Davis did. I'll tell you a little bit about what's informed my experience and how it is that I came to be here. I have been working in substance abuse with adolescents, young adults, and their families since 1996. And so what my experience has been is I have learned more from parents and teenagers and young adults than I have from anywhere, just listening to them. I've spoken now and worked with thousands of families and have been taking in information over the years about what they have experienced and what they've been through and how it is that they recover. And so that's what I want to bring to you here today. I also work with a lot of the local prevention groups and kind of anti-drug groups here in the state. We deliver a lot of services on high school campuses and different places, so I get a lot of feedback about current drug culture. And I'm just going to start because Dr. Davis said it so well by showing that video. Is I do talk a lot about what our kids and parents receive as far as the pressures from society about how you're supposed to respond to your kid on drugs, or how the kid is supposed to see using drugs and alcohol, and some of the ways that they're set up, I believe, to fail from the time as they're coming up through school, and they're set up to see a lot of drug use as rites of passage, and just that's normal. That's what you're supposed to do. So we'll talk a lot about all that. I do want to just inform you right off the jump that I will use PowerPoint to some degree. Basically, I write things on paper still. I'm pretty old school. So what you're going to see is paper notes for the most part. Oh, that's not me. Where are we? Did I go the wrong direction? See, you can tell I don't use a ton of. Huh? Right.
There you go.
This is not me, though. There we are.
Yeah, that was my last slide.
That was your last slide. All right. I was going through his slides. I was wondering where I was. Okay. All right. I think I'm in the right spot now. So I am happy to have as much discussion as possible. Can I ask really quick, how many of you in here are parents? Okay, so we have a lot of parents in the room. And then I'm guessing that you came today because you wanted to take something away, because you love your kid and your family. Usually people come to an event like this or a PAL meeting because they either have some hope or they're looking for some hope. And that's what I want to help continue to provide. And I will answer any question that I have any experience with. We do not have to stick to the presentation at all. If it ends up being a discussion, that's also fine with me. So like I said, as I get into it, you'll just kind of see my notes a little bit. I start with this. This is the direct quote. And this is from Mark Twain, one of my favorite authors, but he says, "Never argue with insane people. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." And you could change the word insane people to addict really easy. Anybody here has ever tried arguing with one or dealing with one? They're coming from an irrational place, which he just explained to some degree of what's happening in the brain to get there. But they'll drag you down to their level and just pull you into all kinds of stuff. And so the thing that I'm going to start with talking about is addiction is a family disease. Everybody gets sick. Now we're just going to start with how that happens. I think just describing the nature of the parent-child relationship is a good way to start with that. Is we love our children more than we love anybody on this earth, right? That is a very unique relationship, period. It is not like friend, spouse, your own parents. There's nobody else that you're as biologically programmed to step in front of a train for them, right? That is the nature of the relationship. So automatically, you hear people throw around words like codependent and things like that, and it's different than codependent because you can't. It's not because you're maladjusted that you can't sleep well when your kid is sick. That's a good parent, right? When your kid's sick and they're a baby and they have a fever, you don't sleep well, right? That's not codependency. That's being a loving parent. So we're built on that. We start with that relationship being that way. So when the kids get sick, can the parents start to get pulled into it and respond poorly? Absolutely. When you have things coming into your home that you didn't expect, dishonesty, lies, substance abuse, some of these things, you're going to start to react, right? You're afraid now. You are worried for the person that you love most in this world's life. And you think you're just going to react rationally all the time? I don't think you could expect that of any human. This is a high stress situation, having a kid going through any kind of major discomfort, and addiction is the one that I know and deal with. So I'm just going to start with, here are the few of the things that I've heard from parents over the years. Here are some of the symptoms, some of the things that they know happen in their homes and that we've seen. When you start to talk to parents, and these are not in a particular order, like I said, these are my notes. You can look up here, I'm at the notes, but I'm happy to just kind of discuss them. But some of the first things that I usually hear is just outright fear, stress, anxiety. Is I am nervous, I'm afraid all the time. It's kind of like your kid having 106-degree fever all the time. What do I do? But there's not a pat answer. Take them to the hospital, and let them treat it. Right? That's just not there. So you're living with this and you're trying to respond. The other things that are often going on is that there's a lot of guilt. And I'm going to talk about that a lot today, guilt and fear. I said I'm out of order, but those are the things that I think are primary. So a lot of times parents they have been already primed through most of the kid's life to take responsibility for a lot of their behavior. I don't think rightfully so, but we're set up that way. Society sets us up. If your kid misbehaves, everybody looks at you, right, from the time they're little. So you kind of become jumpy anyway, right? Like, I'm supposed to make sure I control this little human's behavior all the time, right? But we don't grow out of that a lot of times. As they age and they get able to control and make decisions for themselves and make their behavior, we can get stuck in that belief a lot as parents. And so parents have a lot. It's one of the first questions I often get asked is, so why does my kid get high? And parents, when they come into my office a lot of times, it's like they're waiting for me to assault them. What did we do wrong? We're ashamed. Tell us how we broke our kid. And one of the first things that we always need a parent to know is you did not break your kid. I have met only a handful of parents ever, and as long as I've been doing this since 1996, that started their kids on drugs or pushed their kids down the road to bad decisions. Parents don't do that. Right? There are some things inadvertently that are reactions to fear or from their own upbringings or generational alcoholism that may have created or contributed to the problem to some degree. There's some things parents could look at, but it is not, you did this. And that's one of the first things that I think parents need to know to heal. Because if you think you did it, then you're also going to think it's your job to fix it. And if you come up with the magic solution, they're going to snap out of it. Right? And that belief can keep parents consistently saying and doing things that they thought they never would. Okay, fine. I've heard parents do anything from, I scored. He said he had to use, so I bought the heroin outright because I was afraid he'd get sick. And I never thought I would end up doing something like that. I yelled at my kid. I called him a name. So many times I've heard this from parents. And they go, I never thought I'd react to my child that way when I was cradling them when they were little. But I've enough stress, enough guilt, enough situations that are causing these kind of high emotional situations, and they start to react and they get sick too. So you start to see that parents act irrationally, kids act irrationally, addicts act irrationally. And we saw, again, back to that brain. It's so good that he was able to cover so much of that, because you can see they're in these behavior loops, and parents start getting in behavior loops with them. The whole family gets in it, and it may not be as chemically driven, but it's kid does the same thing, the addict does the same thing, parent responds the same way, it doesn't work, everybody's frustrated. How did this happen? I'm also in recovery. I'm 25 years. I sobered up in 1993. I'll have 26 years pretty soon, and that was one of the main things that was happening in my home all the time. We were in a loop. Dad brings up school, I rebel, we fight over and over and over again, right? And everybody was in the loop. I don't think any of us liked it, but we didn't know how to get out of it either. I put their siblings get neglected. That's one of the things that I end up hearing a lot. Parents isolate. Because of that guilt and that shame, we start to see a lot of parents just isolate from their friends, from their family. We just had a parent write for our newsletter this week, and that's one of the things she said is, I was always pretending my kid was sick. We weren't going back to visit family in New York. There was always some excuse. And it's again back to this, parents are doing things they thought they never would. Now I'm lying to cover because I believe that this is my fault somehow, that I've done something wrong. Right? So we're starting to isolate. Resentment builds in the family. The siblings oftentimes that are not getting quite the amount of attention. And again, parents often can't help this. If you have a sick kid, the squeaking wheel gets the grease, right? You got a kid, again, let's take them back to when they're small. Say you got siblings and they're 10 and 4. Right? 4-year-old has a fever. Does the 10-year-old always going to get that much attention that day? It's not going to happen. It's a natural human response to that situation. But what starts to happen, though, is you start to build resentment. Other family members can build resentment if they feel left out or like they don't know what's going on. And then A couple of the other symptoms that I see the most is control. Again, based on that same belief that if I did this, or maybe I can fix it. And that's the rules. I'm going to control it. I'm going to have a lecture. I'm going to have a sit down. I'm going to yell. I'm going to do consequences. I'm going to plead. I'm going to bribe. I'll come up with anything I can, but we're going to really try to control this. We're going to fix the behavior, and everything's going to work out. And parents start trying that, and obviously end up finding out over and over again that it doesn't work. And then anger. And I'm a huge believer. I get a lot of parents that come in, and they are angry. And they're just, I cannot believe my kid did this. I taught him so differently. And one of the things that we always start to try to work them with right from the jump is it's all right to be angry. You have been slighted, absolutely. But what we know we're going to find out later on down the road is that anger is almost always driven by hurt. It is hard to be betrayed by somebody you love that much, right? So it's a wound. It's a reaction. So